Welcome back to VBuzz, everybody. You're here with me, Daryl, and my awesome co-host for the day, Sharita. Now, Sharita, when you were younger, a little girl growing up, were you one of those girls who sort of envisioned your wedding day and planned it all out?
No,
not at all, huh?
Nah.
Okay, well, for the sake of this interview, picture this, all right?
Okay.
It's your wedding day. You and your spouse both look flawless and radiant, perfect for the photograph after photograph you've been posing for. Now, fast forward, say, a month, and you've just got your wedding photos back from the photographer, right? Mm-hmm. And the photos are not up to your expectations.
Oh no, I would say that could near destroy a marriage.
A bit dramatic, I feel, but definitely cause for some fights, for sure. I'll go with you on that one. Now, well, with years and years of experience under his belt, our first guest is definitely the man you want behind the camera on your big day. We're talking about wedding photographer Grant Corbin. He's photographed hundreds of weddings, and he joins us on the show today to give us a little bit of insight into what he does. Hi, Grant. Thank you for joining us on VBuzz.
Oh, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here this evening.
Awesome.
I'm very privileged to be here.
Nice.
Yes.
Now, you know, growing up in a breathtakingly scenic country like New Zealand, one would think a person might gravitate towards landscape photography.
Yes.
What led you down the path of wedding photography?
Sometimes I think when you're living somewhere which is so beautiful, you can take it for granted. It was only when I started seeing the Lord of the Rings movies again, I started thinking, well, New Zealand really is a fantastic country. But I've always sort of had a wanderlust. I've wanted to go out and meet new people, see different cultures and that kind of thing. And so I've always gravitated towards shooting people. I found people very, very interesting. And the nice thing about weddings is that usually it's a wonderful day. People are really happy. They're enjoying themselves, and you can take lovely photos of them.
Do you remember the first wedding you ever shot?
Oh my! Oh, that was a long, long time ago. It was for one of my brothers, and I was just a second photographer. Well, I wasn't even hired. A lot of people get into photography because they think, oh, I've got a family wedding coming up, and so they get out their camera and they dust it off and they shoot it. But I think the first wedding that I ever shot, which really made me look at weddings very, very differently, was a wedding that I was invited to about 20 years ago here. Okay. And I was shooting, and I saw that the professional photographer was shooting. I definitely was not getting in their way. But then I saw all these family members who were up there trying to shoot it as well.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not contributing anything to this except for the mayhem. And so I decided I'm going to sit down. And so I sat down and I enjoyed the rest of the wedding. And I just observed, and I found that was a great learning experience for me.
That's interesting.
Okay, you know, it's going back to what you said earlier about how everyone's always very happy at weddings. And of course, it's one of the most important days in our lives when we get married.
Yes.
As a photographer or witnessing somebody else's important day, I'm sure you must feel some amount of pressure as you shoot these photographs.
In a nutshell, no.
Okay, not at all.
I'll tell you why. When I first started off, yes. Okay, definitely.
Yeah.
I think the first time I was actually engaged to be the photographer, I bought all these books. I bought extra bodies, I bought extra film. I bought because that was back in the day when we didn't shoot digital. We were shooting with film.
Yeah.
And I took it incredibly seriously. I had a checklist. I went through it again and again and again and again. And I took the photos for that wedding, and they turned out fantastic. But it was because I was very nervous and I was very prepared for it. But I think that today, like, I know probably the first time that you were on TV, you were probably quite nervous, but now you're probably very relaxed. And I know lawyers who are like that the first time they're in court, or a surgeon who's operating for the first time. You can be very, very nervous, but then after you've done so many, then it becomes a very, I don't know, I'm always very relaxed.
How did you deal with that nervousness, though?
By being prepared. Knowing my equipment really well, having the best equipment for the day, having backups of all of my gear, bringing equipment that would enable me to actually control the lighting. Shooting in a studio, you know, in my own studio, or shooting at a wedding day or at an event, or shooting a product shoot, they're all very, very different. At a wedding, you are not normally in control of the lighting at all. And so one of the ways I mitigated that issue was by I bring my own lights, and they're all radio triggered from my camera. I've got a radio sender on, and I shoot. And so I can be in an environment where there's no light, like maybe on a beach. Okay, I love beach weddings. But sometimes at night, you know, they'll set the tables out and they've got like 2 or 3 candles on. It's very romantic. The sun is going down, lovely photos, and the sun's gone.
Yeah.
And then there's no light. And I pity people who are, some people like to be available light purists.
Yeah.
And they can't shoot then because it's black.
Yeah,
Everyone is
complete
like,
darkness.
it's just too dark.
Yeah.
So I have light stands set up along the beach, and when I shoot, it lights up. And because it's coming from different directions, it doesn't look like it's flash on camera, people caught like deer in the headlights. You know, people can go to my website and they can see some of these photos.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, flash was used, but you don't even really realize that it was. And that's the secret of it.
You mentioned the term available light purist.
Yes.
What is that exactly?
Available light means you're giving up, the photographer's giving up their ability to alter the lighting, which you're basically going in and you have to shoot with whatever light is there. And that works well if the people have lit the place really nicely.
Okay.
But occasionally, especially today, if you've been to a wedding recently, you'll see that a lot of hotel venues use these green and purple LED lights.
Yeah.
Okay? And I can promise you, no bride or groom or anyone looks nice with half a green face and half a purple face.
Yes.
And so an available light photographer has to deal with that. Or if you go into a church or into a temple, sometimes you've got mixed lighting. You've got sodium bulbs hanging down. Sometimes they give a greenish tinge. Fluorescents can give a purplish tinge.
So you're not an available light purist. What then is your photography style?
Okay. While I'm not a photography light purist, I do shoot with available light because I actually have 2 cameras with me. One of them is triggering my flashes. The other one is I'm going to use more for black and white work. And that way I don't really care about the color cast of light that's coming in. But my style of photography is very candid. I try and be as discreet as I can be. I've been to weddings now. Okay, in a temple or Gurdwara, it's not really that critical because people are milling around anyway. Okay, everywhere. In a church, sometimes it's a bit more formal, and sometimes the priest or the minister will say there's no, do not walk around. But I've seen photographers get up and it's looked like no one can see who's getting married because you've got a gaggle of photographers and videographers gathered around them. And that style I hate. And that was what I saw at that first wedding I mentioned earlier. I normally use quite long telephoto lenses. And I can stand many, I can stay well back and take photos. And the problem, though, that introduces, okay, it's good and it's bad. There's always a trade-off. The good thing is I'm not in anyone's way. And I can still come in very close, and so it looks like I'm right up there with the couple. The problem is that sometimes people don't realize that the photographer is there and he's shooting. And so I had one incident at one wedding whereby the couple were sharing their vows and they went to kiss each other. And the best man who was standing next door pulled out his mobile phone and put it up and took a photo. And I got a lovely photo of the mobile phone covering the face of the, it was sad.
I would be pretty mad at that.
I think they probably were. And I made sure that they got it. I said, look, I'm really sorry about this, but this is from my angle. But it wasn't a complete write-off.
How do you navigate through situations like that?
Yes,
then?
Well, you see, I'm not the only person who's shooting. I always shoot as a team. And so in that situation I just mentioned, fortunately, my other photographer was round the other side and he was able to get the kiss shot, which was a relief. But normally I shoot with 1 or 2 other photographers. They have to be very experienced. And so navigating is quite simple. You just have to be polite and friendly and say, oh, would you mind, I'm just trying to get a shot here or whatever. And you just be nice to people because everyone's there to have a good day.
It sounds like there's a lot of work that goes on behind what you do. I mean, you're not just there on your own shooting. You've got your team, and with all the lights that you have to set up as well, I'm sure the team helps you out with that. What do you look for in your team when you're sort of gathering your team to go for a wedding shoot?
Okay. They have to realize that we're there to serve the couple. Okay, it's their day. I get some photographers who come to me and they want to shoot with me, but they don't really see that it's a service that you're doing to a couple. Because when you're shooting a wedding, you're shooting what is going to become an heirloom for the family.
Yeah.
I know that like
Yeah.
I've got family photos going back into the 1930s, 1920s.
Wow.
Actually, I've got one from 1917, I think. So I've got a lot of family heritage photos on each side of my family, and you look back, and that's an heirloom. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to capture the couple so that their children and their grandchildren and even their great-grandchildren will be able to look back and say, oh, this is my grandma or my great-grandma, she was really quite hot when she was young. Or gee, wasn't my granddad a handsome young man? It helps because family is very, very important, and knowing where we've come from, seeing that you know, we're here, with life, we're only here for a certain length of time, and we're part of the flow of life. And so I'm trying to capture that. And so when people come to me and they want to shoot, I want to know why they want to shoot. And sometimes it's after the glory. You know, some people, they like to shoot because they think it's my photo shoot, okay? They're coming at it from the wrong perspective. They're also coming at it, maybe they're thinking they're a hobbyist and they think, oh, it's a good way to make money. If that was why I was doing weddings, no, I wouldn't be shooting weddings. Okay, I make a good amount of money from it, like I can live on it.
But I like that you mentioned that you're creating an heirloom for the family, because, you know, last year I brought the story up earlier about the couple in Singapore who had a fiasco when they got back their wedding photos, and it was just terribly shot and just weird angles, and even the editing process was terrible. Now, what advice do you have for couples on trying to sort of avoiding that whole situation altogether?
Okay, there are two things, actually there's several things to that story. I recall it quite well now. There were two sides to that story. There was the photographer's side and there was the couple side. With the photography, when people come to me, they get me. It's very rare that I will not be at a wedding that someone's engaged me for. But I usually am there. And secondly, I will try and have the people that I'm comfortable shooting with who are as good as I am. I don't claim to be the best photographer out of my team at all. You know, there are some of the photographers that shoot with me are much better than me at certain aspects. One of them I've been shooting with for 16 or 17 years. Another one, he's been shooting with me for at least 10 years. I've got people who are very, very close, and most of the time
there's
they're
a
running
trust
their own.
and there's a bond there.
Yes, there definitely is. I like to play as a team, and sometimes people don't want to play as a team. Just referring, I'll get back to the quick answer of that question, but just quickly, just to divert back, I look at people who are going to shoot with me, they have to be a team player. If they're all trying to shoot the same thing, from the same angle, I'm thinking that's a waste of resources. You should be somewhere else shooting something else. But getting back to that issue, the issue there, I believe, was because the couple, I'm not sure if they got the photographer at the day, but I always make sure that I'm the one. The second thing that went wrong there was that they also picked out some of the photos which weren't the best photos.
True.
And the photographer actually showed that he had other photos that were, quite good photos. And I'm sometimes left in that dilemma myself when I'm editing. Like, I might have 2,000 images from a wedding, and I'm going through them, and I have to decide, do I give them back all of the photos? Or do I just pick out like the 200 or 300 best? And it's a trade-off. You know, you think, this might be a really horrible photo, but it's the only photo I've got of Auntie so-and-so. So it is a very difficult thing. You must be very careful about judging people by what's on the internet. Photographers have been really burned in the past. Back when the internet was young, and back in the days when we were all still shooting film, I know that there was a lot of things that were said on the internet that were just not helpful for the industry at all.
I guess it's important to find out both sides of the story as well.
And you know, Grant, you have made your name in wedding photography. It's clear that you know a lot about wedding photography, but you also photograph a lot of different things, such as underwater photography and baby smash cake photography as well. But could you share with us some of the projects that you're working on right now?
Okay, that sounds good. The reason why I've made my name in weddings is because I've been doing it for so long. And so it makes me like a granddaddy in a sense of shooting weddings here. But I would say that I really enjoy, although I still love doing weddings, I love doing underwater photography, and that is actually shooting models underwater. People who are used to being underwater. Not everyone's a good model underwater, okay? You have to be extremely relaxed. And so I like to do those, and because it's a very, very exhausting process. It's not done with scuba gear, it's actually done with breath holding. Normally in a pool, so we can control the clarity of the water. There's no waves, no swell, no boats whizzing across. And I can actually put down backdrops or lighting or whatever I need to use. And like to get maybe 2 or 3 photos, it might take 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Okay, so because it's very hard to control.
How do you control the lighting underwater?
Oh, okay. I used to use lights. Now I just use the biggest light of all, the sun.
The sun. Okay, fair enough.
And the sun can be good if it's out bright. It can also be good if it's behind cloud, because it gives different lighting effects. And I normally shoot between in less than 5 meters of water, so I don't need to use lighting for that. Okay. Cake smashing, it's a really big thing overseas. It's catching on here, and that's normally where we have a baby come into the studio, we have a cake, it's normally a first birthday, and cake, yeah, they're so cute. It's messy as anything though, and we sit them down with the cake, and the mum's there egging them on, I'm egging them on, we're making noises and stuff, and then finally the kid looks at the cake and says, well, what's this? And they start touching it. Oh, I can play with them. They start messing it up and they put it in their face and everything. It's fun. But as I said, it's very messy. So I do that. I do LinkedIn photos as well, corporate work.
There's a lot of work that you actually do besides just wedding photography. Do you have any projects that are coming up next that you're quite keen to share with us?
Yes. Okay, I'm actually working, I'm working with a hospital in East Malaysia, I hope. Okay, we're talking about, in talks about this right now. And we're hoping to do something for children who've got cancer. Because not many people think of children as having cancer. Right now, we're in the middle of, well, it's just started Movember. And so Movember is where guys grow their moustaches up to raise awareness of things like prostate cancer, which is something that many Malaysians don't know about. But also, a lot of children get cancer as well. And some of them are going to be terminal and some of them are not. Some of them will be able to be cancer survivors. So I'm working with a doctor right now. We're trying to get sponsors together to help us out with this project. It's not a money-making project. It's a charitable thing that we're doing. We want to bless parents so that they can remember their children, if their children are going to be terminal. They'll have a lovely memory. We're going to do them in superhero costumes or maybe Disney costumes or Thor or things like this. And some of the other photos from the children that are going to live through, we're going to put them up in the hospital walls so that we can inspire children that they're special, that they're going to be able to...
that is a great, that is a wonderful way to use your talent and your skills as well. And you mentioned how awareness for men's prostate cancer is lacking in Malaysia. And that's right, we'll be speaking about that next week, in fact, on VBuzz on the show. So we're going to be spreading some awareness there. But thank you so much for joining us today. That's lovely that's the next project you're working on.
This interview has been very insightful. Thank you so much, Grant.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Wow. So you know what to do now, Shrita. If you want Grant to be at your wedding, you know, I read that you'd have to book him at least 2 years in advance.
Oh, wow.
At some cases. But it's amazing to hear about all the other things that he's doing too.
For sure. And you know what? One thing that really kind of I realized was that, there's so many people at weddings who try to clamber to the front and kind of ruin a couple's photos. So, you know, I think people need to be very aware of that as well, that, you know, you need to sit down and, like I said...
It's not your big day, it's their big day.
Just enjoy the moment and let them get their money shots, for sure. Well, we're going to be taking a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be speaking with filmmakers Wang Jinxian and Sanjeev Reddy, so stay tuned.